This company's never been more profitable.
You mean hugely profitable?
I like it.
DavePorter.com presents The Profitable Cleaner, a podcast on commercial cleaning sales and entrepreneurship. The one podcast that's not afraid to discuss real sales strategies with real cleaning professionals that produce real profits and real results.
All right, let's do it. It'll be a fun time. Welcome, everybody, to The Profitable Cleaner. Super excited to have this next guest here. It's going to be a different twist. We've been trying to find ways in the podcast to do different alternatives, different types of episodes, and you guys are going to notice, right? And this one caught my attention through LinkedIn. I read one of his articles, and then I started paying attention to what he was doing, and I just figured this would be a heck of an episode, more of hands-on and something that really, really happened, and I would love for him to walk us on what that goes through. But before we get into it, Joseph Lockhart, sir, president of JDM Janitorial, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Angel. I'm excited to be here with you and James this afternoon, and yeah, let's jump into it.
Let's do it. Do you do podcasts a lot?
I have done 2 podcasts before. Yeah, where I got invited on. Yeah.
Good.
I ran
They
for
say
city
that the
council.
third.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How was that recently?
2 years ago, I ran for city of Fort Worth. Yeah, and so they brought me on to talk about housing and all that stuff.
Wow. How did it go? How did that go?
It went good. Everybody loved it, I guess. The guy that did it, he helped me. He made me feel good about it.
Good, man. Good. Well, I'm super excited to have you. As you know, we have a lot of guests. We pay a lot of attention on social. We read a lot of articles, a lot of development. And this article in particular caught my eye because of, I think it was, I don't know if you would call it a special case, but I think based on what you read here, I don't know that there's that many prospects that allow you to dive deep with them in there. And we'll get into it right now, but tell us a little bit about yourself, Joseph. How long have you been in the industry? When did JDM come about now? And how big are you guys now?
Yeah, so we started as like a part-time little side hustle in 2009. It was just something to have some extra income coming in. And then the company that I was working for, they completely shut down and they fired us all. Just basically they brought us in and handed us all letters, no severance, no nothing. And I was going to start as a financial advisor in 4 months. I had to finish my degree, and I went home and I prayed about it. And then right in the Bible, I opened it up randomly and said, don't wait 4 months. I was like, oh, crap. Like, what am I supposed to do then? And I had one customer, $1,700 a month. I didn't know what I was doing. I had my dad doing it on his free time. And I was like, well, I know this isn't it. And so I kept praying about it, and that was it. I got a referral the next day for another little customer, and I was just like, hey, I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. And we did. And so it started off real slow. I think our first year we did like $80,000, and, profit was like 20 or 30. And my wife was looking at me like, you are a crazy fool and you're bankrupting us. And then the next year, I put the kids back in daycare, and I just really went after it. And we went to 120 to 240 to 500, and then we went up to 700, and now we do a little bit over, right around $1.5 million, pretty consistent.
Nice, man. Well, congratulations. Congratulations. That's really cool that you were like, what do I do? You open up the Bible, boom. That's what you need to do. We just had a guest on that we were basically speaking about that portion, right? Like how foresight, especially powered through the Bible, is like super powerful, right? Mm-hmm. Like sometimes you don't know what the path is going to be. You don't know anything. You just kind of have to trust. And it seems like it's been growing since then.
Yeah.
Right. So that's really cool. And where are you located?
So we're in Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas?
I think everybody knows what Fort Worth is.
Yeah, hey, I used to be really bad. We used to be really bad at geography. But no, that's super exciting, man. Let me ask you, before we jump into this article, because I think people are going to get straight into it. And I think it's going to be really fun. And we'll make sure we link the article so that they can review it. What got you to start writing these articles about these experiences? Because you have a lot of marketing out there for your business, which we can appreciate. Why did you decide to start writing these, and what have you seen from writing them?
So LinkedIn kept prompting me to do it. I think I'll get in a subcontracting network group and somebody will say something that they were struggling with and I would answer. And I just out of wanting to see people do well. And so one thing the first article I wrote was, I think, how can following Jesus solve your retention issues?
Yes.
And it was just something that was really on my heart. Like my business, the reason that we have a lower turnover rate is just because we truly do put the cleaners first. And I feel like even putting them above the customers, because our customers get the feedback from us treating the cleaners well and taking care of them. And so it is a good result for them. And then we treat them well also, of course. But, and so I put that in that article and a lot of people started responding and I was like, oh, okay. I just felt like I had to get it out there. Because I watch some of our large competitors, we get a lot of people come from there. Just put it like that. Some of our larger competitors. And every time I get one, they're like, man, that place didn't train us. They set us out there. Sometimes the equipment would be missing. I'm like, this is $1 billion company. Like, how can that be going on? And so I typed it up real quick and threw it out there. And then LinkedIn kept prompting me again. And so every once in a while I see the prompt and I'm like, okay, I'll write a quick article and throw it out there and see what happens.
You just said something. We had a guest that literally said a little bit ago was that faith in the Bible is an unfair advantage in business. He's like, for those that really follow it, it's really an unfair advantage in business. It sounds like a lot of your principles in business and the reason you started, the reason you retain, the reason you get revenue. Would you say that a lot of the principles come from what you've learned from the Bible? Like, would you agree with that statement?
I would definitely. I had a big customer that I wanted, and I went to a networking thing, and I just walked in the door, and I was like, "Hey, here's my information." And the COO walked up, and she was like, "I saw you at that meeting. Come on in." And we started talking, and I was like, it was a blessing that we saw each other at the meeting, and then I happened to come over here, and you have this need. And she kind of backed up and hesitated when I said that. And you could tell she didn't believe in God. And immediately my mind, I said, dang, I shouldn't have said anything. And after the meeting was over, I was walking back to the car and I was like, man, and the Holy Spirit immediately, it corrected me. It said, don't ever call me a disadvantage. And man, ever since then, I've just been like very cautious. I'm like, I give God all the glory. Thank you, Lord. You blessed me. Because it truly, if you apply those principles, who doesn't want to be treated well? Who doesn't want you to love them like you love yourself? All those things that are in the Bible for you, it's really an advantage. In the world, a lot of times they try to teach you that by taking advantage of people and being mean to them and using them as tools, you're going to get ahead. And you can. Financially, you can get ahead, but it does some other things to you that are irreparable, right? When you get ahead that way, you're always feeling like, man, I'm owed something negative back to me. And when you do it God's way, you don't feel like that. You're like, hey, I'm successful and God is supporting that. And the people are supporting that because I'm doing what he asked me to do. So, yeah, I think that's a huge advantage.
Well, James, do you have a question before we jump into the article?
I actually do have a quick question, which will probably lead to the article and just your activity on LinkedIn. So I was on JDM's website earlier today, and I see that you're very specific at like tracking numbers and case studies and putting that out there to the public. Obviously, case studies brings validation. It gives proof of concept and validates your services. I'm just curious. I don't think a lot of cleaning companies think in the terms of, hey, we're keeping this facility clean. This could be a case study. Talk to me about like the evolution of the business. You talked to us about your revenue growth and all that, but talk to me kind of about your marketing growth and maybe even your mindset growth that like pushed you to like start publishing these case studies that you have on your website. And I'm just curious, like, have those helped you get new contracts, or how do you use those now?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So we're in two like mentoring development programs. One with CBRE, the commercial real estate company, and then we're doing another one with Vistra Corp, which is a down here in Texas. It's a company that owns Encore and TXU and those kind of people. So they have been they've helped me a ton. And one thing is to understand corporate culture. It's statistically based. They want to see numbers that prove what you say you're doing. And so if you can put together a case study where they can pick it up and say, oh, well, if I put that in my system, this would generate me this kind of return on my investment. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Where they can just, plug their numbers in and come out with a result. And so one of the mentors, she was like, hey, all of this stuff that you do is great, but you are the only one to know about it. You're the only one. And so until you can communicate this where other people can just grab it and check it out and then they want that for themselves, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So that was something we redid our RFP process. We redid our cut and paste process. So now we have all these things where office manager can grab. So if I'm busy, I can say, hey, we got an RFP to get out to blah, blah, blah. She just grabs our template, plugs in their numbers, and it has all of our stuff attached to it in a professional manner. And it makes our business stand out, but it also makes it so that we can scale and we're not stuck only limited to what I can do. And that's where we were for a long time 100%. Until they kind of opened up my eyes to that.
Yeah, I think like that's such an underrated or undervalued thing to say. Like what you just said right there is as you're growing, things tend to funnel to you and through you. And I think that when people are not able to systematize it, then like you said, like where they can pull for what they need, then things can get chaotic, or they just get stale, right? They just don't do anything.
Yeah.
But I love what you just said right there, which is like when you're going after these big corporations, they need to be able to see themselves being impacted by what you have without even needing to talk to you. Like before they even talk to you, they can read your articles. Like if I read this article that we're going to talk about right now, that you're going to walk us through, like it makes me think like, okay, if I had am I maximizing my recycling, right? Exactly. Like, am I taking advantage of those credits? Am I not? Okay. And then again, you're right. You get this big player.
I think the sound cut off.
Oh, you're on mute, Angel.
Yeah. Did I just mute I think someone muted me or something. I don't know what happened.
You said you get this big player.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that way a big player can grab what you wrote and then be able to insert themselves into it. So that's really cool. That's really cool what you're doing. If you're okay with it, let's dive into this article. So walk people through it. Like I love the title of this article. It's literally called "I'm Not Paying for That." You just published it 10 days ago, and it's getting a lot of attention. So first things first, walk us a little bit on the theme. Like, what is this article about? Just so people can read it. And again, if you're watching or listening, look at the show notes. We'll put the article in there so that you can even almost like follow along.
Yeah, it was a couple of intentions. One was to show small independent janitorial companies that you can compete on a big stage with ingenuity, I think, with your mind. And then two was to show customers like you're missing out on so many opportunities by trying to do things that you're not specialized in. If you're going to bring in a partner, let that partner be the specialist and then go from there. If you don't trust them enough to do that, then you need to have that relationship with somebody else.
So what I'm going to do is, and we've never done this again, so this is going to be really fun. I'm going to share my screen. That way, this YouTube video, like YouTube can actually follow along.
Okay.
Here, let me know when you guys can see my screen with the shared right here. Is it sharing or not yet?
It says Angel
It's
Screen,
loading.
but it's not showing. Yeah, it's loading.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna try one more
Yeah.
time. If it doesn't work, then I'll just read it out.
Hey, while he's doing
There we
that,
There it is.
real fast before we jump into this, a question along that article, Joseph. I'd be curious once Angel goes through this, and maybe we'll save this for the end. The type of response you've gotten from it so far, because it's popping up on my feed, it's popping up on Angel's feed. I'd just be curious, like, what 10 days ago, in 10 days, what this article, like the engagement it's produced. So we'll save that for after we go through it here.
Okay.
Cool. All right, let's do this. So again, I'm gonna. I think I can read through most of them, right? So, but basically, you sign the contract with a customer that at face value, this is what got me right away. That at face value costs double what their previous solution cost, yet ended up saving them a ton of money. I'm not gonna lie, that's when you got me. That line right there. So interesting. So you had to go through a lot of hoops to be able to double the cost of what they used to pay before. Now, is this article going to walk me through how you did that?
I think most of it is there. Not.
Okay.
I don't know if it was real detailed though.
Yeah. Well, I know we won't get into the numbers, but what was the main thing that to you got them interested? Like when they say, "Hey, can you help us out?" Because a lot of people are like, "Hey, can you help us out? This is what we used to pay, and this is what we want to do." How did you even maneuver the conversation to where you say, "That's cool that that's what you guys want to do and how much you pay, but it's not actually what you guys need, and we need to almost restructure all of this." How did that conversation even lead itself to that?
So one thing that I have learned is that you have to be the professional in your profession. So that specific thing, the way that it even started taking off is that I was just going through their cleaning part, and I said, okay, so right now you guys, you had the thing where you almost got shut down from COVID because of the cleanliness of the facility. So, and then you had us do a deep clean so that you could have a tour from your corporate people. Well, those things alone cost you a ton of one-time money. I was like, so we can fix that for you guys to where it's more easy to digest and even cheaper. But I would like to have your place at a high level at all times. Is that something that y'all are interested in? Yeah, we want the place clean. And so I provided a solution just to meet their bare minimums, plus add on the warehouse that had never been cleaned before. So the price went up because obviously you're cleaning, 70,000 square feet of offices, and then you're leaving a 540,000 square foot warehouse to its own devices. And it looked like it looked terrible, right? And so we once we clean it, then I'm like, well, how's your air conditioning? Oh, well, it's horrible. It leaks now because the system is overrun, and they kept on attributing it to age. Oh, well, it's because it's old. It's because it's old. I said, well, when I walk through, the vents are all caked up with the lint from the fabric. And if you look on top, and I showed them a shelf. I was like, what are y'all going to do to get this out? And I mean, this thick of lint from all the fabrics that they had just never, ever cleaned. And he's like, well, what do you mean? I was like, well, where do you think that stuff's going? It's going in your AC vents. So do you think that, because they had to spend, I think it was like $7.6 million. That was the quote that they got to replace all of the air conditioning units on the roof. And it was so big that this multi-billion-dollar company had to do it in phases. And so I was like, where do you think all this lint's going? It's going into your AC vents. And what happens when the AC vent gets clogged up with dust and lint? It overheats, right? It's got to produce more air, and it's got to push through all the dust and dirt. I was like, what if we could take that lint and dust and dirt away? Would you want to look at how much that would cost. Yeah, of course we want to look at that. Then once we give that solution, they're like, man, if we could save $7 million on this AC or defer it for another 3 or 4 years and we make interest on all that money for 5 years, $7 million, 5% interest for 5 years, that's a lot of money, right? That's enough to pay for my janitorial service for sure. And so once they got that, then they were like, well, we got some other struggles. What about recycling? I was like, yeah, we could do recycling. What's your struggle? They said, well, we're failing these audits every month. I said, well, how are you failing them? And he said, well, we don't really know. we know that we're trying to recycle. We're trusting them to recycle, but it's not working out. I said, well, you have thousands of employees in this building. How are you going to make all of them do the right thing? If you give us the recycling program, I have 20 people and I can make them do that for you. And I can control 20 people better than you can control 2,000 people. And it's not that you guys are doing the wrong thing. It's almost impossible to make 2,000 people follow directions. And so what we did is we had them all put dry materials in one. Well, first we did a waste audit and we found out where the problem areas were with the cardboard, what could be recycled, what couldn't be recycled. Then once we did that, we brought it back and we said, okay, all of these things can be recycled. These things have to be trashed. And so let's focus on these things. And so we went in there and immediately their standard is 93%, 95%, something like that. They were at 88%. So immediately we got up to standard. We took them straight to standard. And then they were like, well, what if we want to be like the leader in our company now, go from the worst to the best? I said, okay, well, what else was on your audit? Well, we got these desiccant packs. I said, well, we can fix that too. I think I'm gonna need some time to do some research. And that's a whole nother thing. And then he's like, well, we got the recycling, we got this. He's like, what else can you do? I was like, well, we can do pretty much anything you want. He's like, what about our parking lot looks like garbage? Our windows look like trash. Our sidewalks are bad. Can you package that in with the price? And so all the things they had never been doing were now getting done. And so the price, of course, doubled because you weren't doing any of this before. But now that's that $7 million AC. If you keep these systems in place, you're not going to replace that for 30 or 40 years as opposed to 8 years now. And then for one thing, your facility looks better. Your retention should go up. And then not to mention, you're getting this huge credit that you were never getting on your recycling program. Mm-hmm. It amounts to almost $300,000 a year that they were giving the recycling company. Was 15 times 12, whatever that is. They were giving $15,000 a month. I think it's like, I don't want to throw a number out and be wrong because that's embarrassing.
That's 180. Yeah, that's 180.
180. Yeah, there you go. They were giving away $180,000, and then we came in and they were getting almost the same credit now. And so they went from one end negative to the positive end just instantly, just from us changing their process, just a little easy tweak where it didn't cost them any more time. He ran some more numbers that I don't have in this article because it would have got lengthy, but the time that they saved from not cleaning their own packing stations and using that to process materials, they had an opportunity cost of millions of dollars of more material that was processed by the same number of people because they didn't spend 30 minutes every night cleaning their packing station. We did that for them. So where we're not going to jump in and pack clothes for them, we will clean their packing stations for them and take away that lost revenue from them doing their job. And so once we run the case study and the facility manager, he's getting more and more excited because his name's going up the chart because he's like, crap, now we're tops in recycling. Our sustainability numbers look great. Our facility is clean. We had a corporate walkthrough and they were wowed by how clean the warehouse was. And now the guy in California has contacted me and he's like, hey, we want you to put together a proposal for all of our facilities in the United States and Canada. And so we tried a corporate office and he's like, oh no, it's too expensive for corporate. He was like, let's do distribution centers only. And so now we're in talks with them for all of their stuff across the United States for their distribution centers because of the case study.
You know what's
Man.
interesting? So I'm gonna read this part because I think like you went into it, but I mean, right there alone, like they would pay annually 50,000 to have a deep clean,
Mhm.
right? But by the time we took over, the dust had destroyed their HVAC system. Like you said, $7 million in equipment, right? Like the equipment's not lasting, costing them 15,000 a month just for the recycling. I love this part right here, though. This paragraph is my favorite. Here's the value prop, like right there. It's not let us keep you clean, and I think that's where a lot of cleaners fall short,
Mhm.
right? It's by taking over the recycling program. Like you put in a business case for them, which I don't see a lot of people doing. By taking over the recycling program, you turn their annual loss to 180 into $120,000 gain, delta of 300. Now we clean everything, cleaner, boosted morale and retention, rotation, no deep cleaning anymore,
Mhm.
right? The HVAC's gonna last them way longer. And then I love this one. The lowest, what is it right here? Instituting a daily regimen of electrostatic disinfection. The infection spread rate tracked during the pandemic was the lowest in the multi-million-dollar global company. People were high-fiving and taking credit in every department. It's so true. Man, I gotta tell you, like, I love the fact that you went in to understand their setup, but then you dove deep to truly understand the setup, their processes. And the cool part is you weren't even getting paid to dive deep into their business
Mhm.
yet. And then as you started diving deep, it's like, here, I'll take care of this for now. Let me keep exploring this. Oh, I can take care of this. Hey, I've done my research. I've done my audits. I've walked the building. I've done my thing. Can I now present you with a complete business case and how you're
Mhm.
going to win from this? And I think that's why I love that article so much, because from face value, I will not pay double is what everybody will say.
Yeah.
But when you dive deep is you're not paying double. You're paying the right
Mhm.
amount and it's costing you less, which is
Yeah.
just awesome.
Yeah. And the funny thing
And
that I
now
didn't
you're
add to
quoting the
that,
distribution centers.
yeah, exactly. Now I'm going after all of them. The funny thing is that thing started as a 30-day COVID wipe down of the facility. That's what it started off as. It was a 30. I didn't even want to do it. I'm like, where am I? I'm going to come out here and I'm going to have to provide 3 cleaners for 30 days and I'm going to have to fire everybody. But I was like, yeah, you know what? Y'all need help. Fine. Let me give the. And then it was like, hey, this is working great. Can we get 6 people so we can do it on both shifts? And then it's like, hey, we need 12 people because we got 2 facilities. And then it just snowballed into it. So another thing is if it's a small opportunity in a big platform, I would encourage small businesses to take that opportunity. Now, not saying, hey, if it's a little doctor's office and he's by himself and he wants you to come clean for $50 a day, that might not be the best opportunity. But if it's in a big player, but they only want you to do a small thing, take that and do your best in that, and then you'll have their ear to offer them more things, and they'll listen to you. They'll trust you.
This is awesome. So there's a few things I'm hearing, and we come from a sales background, so we always talk about serve versus sale or sell.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like you really served them a lot before the sale was ever even made, right? That's how you were able to
Yeah.
expand the scope of work. Also, we talk about the power of questions. I can only assume how many questions were had throughout this process to get the information for you to do your due diligence to expand that scope of work. And then last but not least, we have one of our oldest podcasts, Joseph. This is so funny. You are validating our second podcast ever on the show. We say how one-time opportunities could lead to massive doors opening. And
Mm-hmm.
this is like, I'm going to call this a one-time opportunity, a 30-day
Oh,
trial,
yeah.
if you will. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
led to this massive opportunity. How long did this process take? Like from you finding out this might be a 30-day COVID thing to all of a sudden, like you're giving them this full blown scope of work and preventative maintenance plan. How long was that process?
It was long. So we started in March of 2020 and we signed a contract. It'll be 1 year in it was just 1 year in April. So that was a really long process, but we spent 8 months dealing with accounting because, and that was the funny thing. That's what caught me the most off guard, because I'm thinking accounting is looking at these things and they're like, oh, duh. Yeah, we're going to save this here. No, they couldn't look past janitorial equals this. What? These don't make sense because janitorial should cost this. It doesn't make sense to us. The facility manager, the guy that runs that particular distribution center, the 2 distribution, all of us are in meetings like, how can we get them to understand that we're talking about saving millions of dollars by spending hundreds of thousands of dollars? How can we get them to see that? And so we're just constantly sending stuff back over and over and over. And I thank them for a lot of it, because they did a lot of legwork to get this done, but they received a lot of benefit. Like, they're highly recognized for the transition at that facility. A couple people got promoted.
I think what you just said there, like, accounting that didn't actually know. Like, it's almost like they were more on the reactive side and the program side, right? Like the way they've been trained, right? Somebody probably trained them, and whoever trained them trained someone else, and they're like, hey, janitorial equals a cost, and it goes here. This is a cost here. But they're not thinking, like you said, about the credits. They don't understand preventative maintenance of an HVAC system. They don't understand the credits from the recycling portion. They don't understand that if there's lint in the HVAC, it requires more energy. Therefore, your bill goes up. Like, all of that portion isn't explained to them. Do you think that should fall under accounting, or do you think there's like another, or there's other roles, right, that are overseeing like the optimization of this, right? But accounting at the end of the day sees the books, right?
Right. And so that's the disconnect in most large corporations, is facilities is over correcting all of these things. And so he's the one that's going to get the spreadsheet, he or she. They're going to get a spreadsheet of how efficient the facility is. They're going to get a spreadsheet of how much cost is coming out of all these different departments. And then they're going to be in charge of making those cuts and making those moves. But then accounting is in a whole nother barrel, and they are set to limit him without all the information. It's just like, hey, this is the budget. Make it work within the budget. Where he's saying, hey, I'm doing way better than making it work in the budget. I'm saving us a ton of money, but you got to step outside of that cell. They're in cell C6, and they're like, C6 is bigger than it used to be. But he's like, but look at that bottom line, go down to C85, and you can see that all of a sudden it went down, $700,000 for the year. Like, you gotta, and somebody has to, and I would encourage facility managers, if they get a hold of this, to allow that professional to be the professional and then push it through, and they're going to benefit from it too, because once that year end comes and they redo those numbers, they're going to see all those benefits that were attributed to that selection of that right partner. And it just takes a little bit of patience. It takes a lot of foresight, like you said, where people are willing to step outside of their comfort zone and say, okay, well, let's look at this number too. And so, yeah. But, accounting, you're right. It's process driven.
But I think that, so like, and that's where I love, like, the more professional a company is in the facility maintenance space, the more you have, like, what we like to say, right? You got the decision makers, I'm gonna sign the contract. Then you got the champions, and you got influencers, right? You got people that, like, your influencer is like the accounting person is like a champ. If you can get accounting and procurement on your side by giving them what they need and then explaining to them how you can help them hit their numbers while also hitting his numbers. And then you're probably also you're over here with HR as an influencer, because now they're going to be known. Like, HR is measured by employee retention, productivity, how they feel working there. And so if it's dirty, if it's, you know what I mean? So like, and we made I love when people are like, no, we're going to touch on my decision makers, my champions, and my influencers. And you were able to hit on everything, including, like, again, HR or even the CEO of that, or the president or the GM of that specific location. You just put him on the map for having a top sustainability office. So now people are coming to him and be like, what are you doing with your team? What initiative did your facility manager, like, Does that make sense? So you not only saved them money, made them money, brought togetherness between the team, put them on the map. Now they're recognized, and you were able to just navigate yourself through different areas of the business. And there's people that say they're open to doing it. But it requires persistence, it requires research, and it requires, I think, like for you, I think you keep hitting on this long-term gain. Like you went in there, you're like, cool, I'll help you with your 30 days. But there's a bigger picture here. You guys need more help, and I have the help. You need more expertise, and I have the expertise. Let's keep breaking this barrier down together, and then eventually it just builds into an awesome partnership. I can tell you we've had calls this week, last week, and all the time. Most people go in there and they look at everything face value, right?
Yep.
They don't go to that deeper stuff. They just keep it face value, and they're like, well, my proposal's out. They're comparing you with everyone. They're just saying janitorial equals cost. I don't know how many people go and ask, well, what initiatives do you want to, how are you guys recognized when it comes down to sustainability? Where do you want to be? Right? Like, I don't see anyone, like, I don't hear and see a lot of it. Maybe people are doing it, but those that are doing it are winning the larger contracts and being recognized. So that's why I love the article that you're doing.
Yeah. And is a lot of customers see janitorial as a zero sum. So that means that your business is just the same as everybody else's business that does what you do. Cleaning is cleaning. How hard can it be? Get people in here, wipe down, empty trash. And we get customers that say that, right? We go out and they're like, hey, I just want to wipe down. I just want you to take out the trash, nothing too deep, nothing too big. And they're always trying to minimize what we do. But for one thing, is labor intensive as all get out. Is the best companies are process driven, and it saves on so many forefronts. But you gotta have that confidence to present like that. Like, I am of value to your organization. I think a lot of janitorial companies, they fall into the trap of thinking, I gotta compete on price because that's the only thing that separates me. And you're fighting a losing battle if you're doing that, because some of these companies, they pay people $7.50 an hour, and there's no way you can beat them and provide a quality service. You have to do something to separate yourself from that pack.
I think that's great.
Go for it. Sorry, James.
I just only have one last question here for you, man. Well, I guess actually two. I'm still curious about the type of engagement and response you've seen since publishing this article. So if you could touch on that, and maybe the importance of staying active as a president of a janitorial company on LinkedIn. I think that's always good to reinforce. I think there needs to be more of that from just CEOs out there in the janitorial space. But this account aside, how do you take on other accounts? Do you take this approach with everyone, even like more mid-sized accounts? I guess I'll kind of just shut up and learn some knowledge there.
So that was something that they taught us in that for larger accounts, any opportunity and the thing is, we've kind of shifted away from the really small stuff because it no longer fits what we're trying to do. And so we're going after bigger contracts to match what we're good at, which is problem solving. That's what we're good at. We want to get the worst, crappiest building we can with the resources to solve the problem, right? And then we want to go in there and fix all that stuff. And so we've tailored a lot of our engagement to that customer, right? That's why the partnership, the mentoring program with CBRE is so important to us, because within that organization, we can go all over the United States. The Vistra Corp, their partnership has allowed us to peer into what a corporation is actually looking for and what they actually want, which is so far off from what we thought it was. We thought for a long time, let's do this generic bid template and all they're looking for is price. And they're like, no, that is not all they're looking for. They narrow it down to 3 people based on just presentation, and then they can start looking at price. But if you're not in that top 3, you're not even getting a look because they don't want you to make them look like fools, basically. They want very professional company, and now we can compete on price. And you can explain why you might be, I can't compete with a small company that is just barely insured. It just doesn't make sense for us. But I can go against ABM, and we can go head to head, and now I can make sense in that meeting whenever I'm competing against them. And that's so we had a mind shift that has helped us out a ton. It makes it where all of our resources are even more valuable, because now we can go in and we spend 2 hours on something that turns into $100,000, where we were spending 2 days on something that was turned into $200. And so that shift helped us a ton. And then the LinkedIn, we've been a lot of people have been requesting to follow, and I don't know what you call it on LinkedIn, link up, but facility managers. And that's who I was hoping would be engaged with it, our facility managers. And not just because, man, I'm just super passionate about other people succeeding, and not just me. Mm-hmm. We're going to get ours. Lord's been blessing us, cannot complain. But I want other small businesses to not be afraid to charge what they need to charge to be beneficial to their client. And I think that's what we've been missing so much in the janitorial space, because the larger companies run down prices so bad, but then they don't do a great job half the time. And, I've gotten a ton of customers from, I don't want to keep saying names, but, large companies. And the first complaint is they started off after we made it through our 90-day trial period. Everything started tapering off. By the time we got to the end of the first year of a 5-year contract, we were stuck with something we didn't want anymore. And they've done, over and over and over again. And we're quality based, we're like, hey, we want to be in this partnership for 25 years if we can, because it solidifies our income. And we take pride in what we do. I don't want to be on your folder. My face is on your folder, and then you're like, Joseph is such a liar. He sold me a false bill of sale here, and now we're stuck with this company trying to get rid of them. I want them to be like, man, this was the lady that I was talking about, the lady that brought us in on the 30-day trial. She sent me a text message. She said, because I told her, hey, your global guy's looking at us for everything in the United States, man, appreciate the opportunity. This has been game changer for us. And she said, you were the best hire that I've ever had since I've been in procurement for whatever years. And it filled me up with, I was happy about that. And we're a big company, that CEO ain't going to get that text. It's not coming to him. He's just moving on. He's counting checks and everything else. Where a little guy like me, man, that pumps me up to continue to provide that service and that quality.
And I know we're running into time. I have one question, because I mean, honestly, this is awesome. And I knew this was, as soon as I saw that article and I looked you up, I was like, this is going to be like full of value and full of nuggets. I don't think we've had guests talk about specific scenarios like you just broke it down. And I loved every part of it. Like, it's making me want to go and learn a bunch, which brings me to 2 questions for you. One, you should connect this to your CBRE mentorship contact, because we have a lot of cleaning companies that listen to this. Would be fun to see, like, I'm pretty sure there's qualifications and there's this whole process, but it would be interesting. I've never heard of that program myself. It would be fun. But secondly,
they just started it. Yeah. This is the first year.
Okay. So okay. Never mind. Don't share it yet. Keep picking. I'm just kidding. So here's a question for you. You have knowledge that I believe is beyond the revenue and employee size of your company. We're talking, again, we have a lot of guests, and we heard him say, like, and one of my mentors says this all the time, you'll never outpace you as a person. The more you grow individually, your business will never outpace it, right? Yeah. And it sounds like you're ahead. You're over here acting like a $15 million CEO, and the revenue is the bank is barely catching up to the knowledge that you have. So my question to you is, where do you go and seek wisdom outside of the Bible for your industry?
So I,
Or
I think,
how? Maybe not where,
yeah.
but how?
So one guy, Ed Selkow, he does a subcontracting group, and he had run a janitorial company for a long time. He's awesome. And when I was first starting, he was the one that gave me my first mind shift. And it was be small and exhibit the qualities of a small business. Like, don't try to fake it till you make it. Don't act like you're this global company when you're not. He was like, there are benefits to having a small business partner that if you find a way to communicate that, you'll grow at the pace you're supposed to grow. So that's when we started landing larger contracts, because I just kept talking to people until I found somebody that wanted to do business with somebody local, but they were a larger customer. And you find those where I thought that was impossible. I thought I had to look gigantic so that big companies would come to me. But he was like, and then when you get that contract, what are you going to do? It's like, just be happy with where you are and then use that, position that effectively. So he helped me a ton. There was another guy, he had a $4 or $5 million business. He sat down with me for 2-3 hours out of his time, and he just went through and was focusing on SOPs with me, standard operating procedures. And he said, hey, once you get these processes in place, then you can hand this to anybody. So he's like, you need to focus on that. And then he gave me some other advice that I use and I implemented. Then we had Blue Wave is another person. So that's a company, and the Minority Council hooked us up with them. And he took me through a program, and he used to work for ExxonMobil in procurement. And he said, these are all the things that you need to have to do business with an international company. And so I'm just like adding all these processes and procedures. And I'm just like, okay, just come on. And so over a 6-week period, I had an operations manual that was like this thick. And so to me, I look at business as business, that it doesn't necessarily have to be janitorial that can help me. I think if you look at your business as a real industry and you say, hey, you know what, I'm just like a Walmart, or I'm just like the taco shop down the street. This is a legitimate business and I have something to offer. And so I'm just going to learn how to be a better business. And that's where my focus is attaching to people that, like I said, Vistra Corp and CBRE, they're just businesses and they know how to do business very well. You know, they do billions and billions of dollars of business. And I'm like, hey, just teach me how to do millions and millions of dollars of business.
Man, honestly, I love this podcast. I love what came out of it. And I love, again, I know it's one article, but I think I'm more impressed by everything that you mentioned and how you learn. Your ability to learn, to implement, to process, and keep going is really impressive. And I'm excited to be able to redo a podcast or do another podcast with you a year from now, 2 years from now, where you're like, yeah, man, we're no longer 1.2, 1.5. We're that I don't even remember who that guy is, because I think like the leveling up that you're gonna be doing is really impressive, man. So we just want to thank you so much, Joseph, for being here in the Profitable Cleaner. Super glad you were here, and I'm pretty confident that people are gonna go message them the takeaways you got, share the article, check out the article, and once again, man, thank you so much for being here. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All right.